When I first became unwell with a long COVID, I didn't understand why what I was saying could have such an impact on my well-being. So I would say I was broken, that I was never going to get better, because what I didn't understand is how the brain processes information. Every part of your brain processes, which sounds obvious, but when we speak out loud, there's a part of our brain that is processing the sounds, but also when we speak out loud, we're using our prefrontal cortex, and that's the decision maker, that's the sensible part of our brain. So if all the different parts of our brain are working when we speak, we have to really consider what it is we say, because it's also listening. I didn't want this to be true because I didn't want to have to learn how to speak to myself kindly, because I thought it was a nonsense. I was one of those people that was really strong. I just kept pushing forward. I didn't want to do that piece of work because I thought it was going to be too big. And the reality is, it is big, but it wasn't too big. And it also means I now know how to speak to myself kindly and in a way that allows me to feel more balanced. So my husband accuses me of hyperbole. For me, it's always everything or nothing. And that doesn't mean I stop using that type of language, because I love being that enthusiastic and I love being that over the top about things. But what it means is when I talk to myself about my health and when I talk to myself about my mental state, I am far more considered in what I say, because my auditory network is engaged, it's listening. And I need to learn how to emotionally regulate myself, and I need to help my amygdala experience safety. So when I speak to myself now, I use words that are calming and soothing and loving. Learning that our own voice is a source of safety is a phenomenal brain hack, is a phenomenal trick. And I say trick, it's not a trick, it's practice. Self-compassion is a language, and like any language, it takes time to learn how it sounds, how it feels, the tonality, the inflections, all of those things play a part when we are talking to ourselves. Now, I wasn't somebody who wanted to do morning mantras, or I thought I'm British, talking in the mirror is a no, I don't do that. I didn't understand that it wasn't stupid. I didn't understand that it had so much impact on how my brain perceived how I was, what I was doing, and how I could I was going to say teach myself, and I suppose it is teach myself to feel safe with the words that I chose to use. And I started doing this because when I read John Sarno's book, he has 12 daily statements that you can pull on to help rewire the brain from chronic pain. So this was written in 1997. I know it was the 1990s. And the language is a little bit limited, and the understanding we now have about mind-body conditions and what that chronic pain piece did for the whole community has expanded. So we don't necessarily have to use those 12 steps or those 12 statements. We can actually use statements that work for recovering our own nervous systems in a way that makes sense for us. So a small side note is, if it doesn't feel right when you say it, it's probably not going to have as much impact as something that does feel right has. So if I say, I am safe, my body works perfectly. If I'm experiencing pain, I might find that difficult to believe. However, if I say, I am safe to slow down, I can feel in my body, by the way that my shoulders relax, by the way that my throat loosens, by the way that my heart comes down, that's a statement I do believe. So I'm going to give us 12 statements that we can use, but use the ones that work for you. As long as they feel right in your body, and as long as they are positive in relation to how you are doing, that's the most important thing. So the 12 that I have, I'm going to ask you just to get comfy. Deep breath in and relax your shoulders. Bow your heads if you want, soft eyes, hands on chest. I'm going to say these, and then I'm going to ask you to say them out loud after. Okay, so these are the 12 daily rewiring statements for helping heal long COVID. These are the ones that I've used anyway. Ready? My symptoms are real, but they are not a sign of damage. My brain can change. My nervous system can learn safety. My body is protecting me, not working against me. Fear amplifies symptoms. Safety calms them. I choose curiosity over fear. I am safe in this moment. I am safe to speak to myself with a loving tone and kind words. Movement is something I can explore with confidence, curiosity, and self-trust. Discomfort does not always mean danger. I choose kindness over criticism. Every safe experience strengthens new neural pathways. Today, I teach my brain safety, hope, and possibility. Big breath in, head up, exhale. So when we do that for one day, a new pathway has started, but we need to keep building it. Otherwise, the brain will decide it's not important and it'll get rid of it again. So 2 to 6 weeks with consistent daily practice, lots of people begin to notice that this new way of thinking starts to permeate into their day and it starts to be able to be felt in the body a little bit more. Around the 2 months, it looks like that new behavior becomes automatic. It's something that actually is now a part of us. And I'm not saying that this is going to be the thing that fixes you. However, this is the thing that will help your brain to recognize that what you are experiencing is not physiological damage. There's nothing hanging out in your blood. There's nothing hanging out in your system, that this is nervous system deregulation. And once we can believe that, that's when we can start to move out of that fear space and start to build our lives again. So it's worth practicing. I had these written on my mirror and I would stand in front of my mirror every day and I would say them out loud. Some days I would do it 3-4 times in a row. But finally, it takes time, but we get there. And that's the most important thing. If we treat ourselves kindly, we start to learn that we are safe. And that's what we're all looking for, ultimately. Sometimes we can't stop the thoughts, that dread, that terror, that fear from spiraling and going around and around and around. And something we can use is something called a stop button. Obviously, it's not a real life stop button. That would be super fun. But this can either be called thought catching or the stop button or just a stop. And we've got 4 ways to do this. We can have physical interrupts, we can have verbal interrupts, we can have sensory interrupts, and we can also have cognitive interrupts. So I'm going to do each one. And as I do them, I want you to try just one with me and see if actually it can help stop a thought from happening. So the first one's the physical interrupts. One physical interrupt, raise your hand. It's a really, really good one. We can also take a breath and exhale. This is my one. This is the one I do. We can put a hand on our heart, a hand on our chest. The thumb rub. This thumb rub releases a specific type of safety neuron in our brain. That's the stop button. Oh, I'm calming myself down already. Or we can clap our hands. anything that stops that thought from spiraling. So we're going to take a second, we're going to take a breath, we're going to close our eyes, and I just want you to use one of those physical interrupts, or try to see if you can just catch a thought as it's running at you. Okay, so let's say our thought is, I can't manage this pain. Ready? Breathe in. I can't manage this pain. Catch it. Raise your hand. Heart and hands on heart. Clap those hands. Okay, that's your physical interrupt. Next, we have verbal interrupts. So we can hum. And actually, hum is a really, really big one for me as well. I say it was just hand on heart. I was humming as well. We can say stop. We can say choose again. We can also say, that's an old pathway, I don't need that one anymore. So these are your verbal interrupts. So again, we're going to use the same thought, this pain is too much for me, and I want you to try a verbal interrupt. So I'm going to breathe in. This pain is too much for me. Stop. I don't need you anymore. Thank you, but I don't need you anymore. Excellent. Next, we've got sensory interruptions. So this is about hot or cold, or it can be a smell or a drink or a taste. A very common one is name 5 things in the room that's around you. I've got a drink here, so I'm going to be taking a drink. But ready? So we're going to use the same word, same phrase. I'm going to breathe in. Oh, my pain is too much for me. I'm going to take a drink. Just notice the flavour, or notice the pink cushion, or notice how warm your hands are. Okay? That's the sensory interrupt. Now, the final one is the cognitive interrupt. So we can count backwards from 10, for example, or spell your name backwards, or we can even ask a question. Is this fact or is this fear? A great question, and the thing that I now have up on my mirror is the question, why am I? Why am I actually fine in this moment? Why am I feeling so safe? Okay, so we're going to do the cognitive interrupt this time, and I'm going to count backwards from 10, but you choose you. Okay, ready? Breathe in. Thought, why is this pain too much for me? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so those are our stop buttons, and we can use those whenever we notice those thoughts are coming in. And obviously I did them out loud, but you can do them internally if you really want to. But coming back to that idea that what we say matters, and the fact that we use our auditory processing network, and we can start to build the fact that we are safe by hearing our own voice. If you can do it out loud, even better. I went to, when I was starting to recover, and I was trying to get myself back out into the world, a friend invited us to their party, and there were lots of strangers there that I'd never met before. And I could feel I was having thoughts racing, and I could feel symptoms trying to jump up in my body. So actually my thought catching and my stop button, then I would just be talking to someone and I'd let them pick up the conversation, and I would quietly just hum. And it was a noisy room and they couldn't hear me, but it meant that I was having a verbal interrupt with the hum, but also a sensory interrupt with the humming sensation in my chest. And actually, for quite a long time, that was the thing that I took everywhere with me, because it was something I could take everywhere with me. And my brain now associates this with safety. And that's how we build new neural pathways to help us learn what safety feels like. Okay? But thought catching or using a stop button can be a really, really effective way to just start building those new pathways and start training the brain that we are safe. So when we use words to describe what we're feeling, we are telling our brain that we're not safe in this body in this moment. Because if we're describing the fact that it hurts too much, or I'm too sensitive, or I'm super anxious right now, what we're telling ourselves is that we are not well and we're not safe. So something we can do is called word swapping. And word swapping is not denying our feelings and our sensations because they are absolutely real, but it's reframing them so that actually we're helping our brain understand that, yes, this is happening, but no, I'm not afraid of it. I'm just a bit more curious about it than scared, because the whole goal of brain retraining is to get to safety. So I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes, maybe hand on chest, drop your chin, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to say some statements that probably really, really familiar to you. And then I'm going to give you the opposites, okay? Just so that you can hear what that sounds like. Ready? I'll never get better. We can say, stop. My brain is predicting, but not predicting the future. We can say, I'm failing. Stop. I'm learning something new. And that takes time. We could say, I should be further on in my recovery. Instead, stop. Healing's not a race. We might say, I'm in so much pain right now. Stop. I'm noticing sensations right now. We might say, I'm so weak. Instead, we can say, my body is recovering and adapting. We might say, I never get better. But what we can say is recovery happens one day at a time. Now, exhale. Something else that we all do. We say things like, I am anxious when it comes to feelings, or I'm afraid. When we do that, again, what we're doing is telling our brain, we're turning that into who we are. But if we take a moment and we add in the word feeling, what we do is we can start to learn to separate ourselves from what's happening in our body. So rather than saying, I'm anxious, if we change it to, I am feeling anxious, that word feeling allows our brain to recognize that it's not completely who we are. It allows our brain to take that moment to go, oh, well, I've got a sensation that is anxiety in the same way that I have a sensation that is happy, or I have sensations that are hungry. That doesn't define who I am. So by adding in that word feeling, we can start to help ourselves become the person and the people that we want to recover into. Okay? So I'm anxious. Stop. I'm noticing feelings of anxiety. I'm afraid. Stop. I'm noticing feelings of fear. And the great thing is, when we start to notice what we're feeling, we can actually start turning to them and asking ourselves in that moment what it is we need. You know, if you're afraid, what is it you're afraid of? Are you afraid of something that's actually real and that's actually happening? Or are you afraid of something that your brain predicts might happen? Because that's how the brain works. It will pick up previous information, but that doesn't mean that it knows what's happening in this moment. And the last thing in relation to this is when we do word swapping, we can also swap out the words for something completely different if you want to have a bit of fun with it. So there's an amazing woman who was on one of Raylan Eagle's calls who, whenever she had symptoms, she just shouted, pineapples, pineapples, because it meant that her brain completely was able to separate from the fact that things that were going on in her body were things to be afraid of. Personally, I have chickens, because I've made up a small story that my amygdala is Amy Winehouse, amygdala Winehouse. And when she gets sad, all of the chickens in the chicken coop run all over my body, and every chicken is a symptom. So when I start to calm down my amygdala, it means amygdala Winehouse starts singing and all the chickens start to calm down. So I would say to my husband, I'm just taking the chickens for a walk, or, oh, I've got chickens visiting today. Because actually it makes it feel fun. And I know this isn't fun, don't get me wrong. Oh my God, I know this isn't fun, but we are allowed to have fun. We are allowed to make ourselves laugh. We are allowed to feel silly. So if you can, maybe turn your symptoms into something that gives you a little bit of joy. I still talk to my chickens. I don't have them. They don't visit me as much anymore. But it meant that I stopped being afraid when they did, because they were just chickens. They weren't anything to be scared of. I hope that works for you too. This version of self-talk I like to call the third man. This is when we talk about ourselves in the third person, or we give different parts of our brain a different name. So we talk out loud because we need that prefrontal cortex activation. It helps us gain perspective and regulate our emotions. It also gives us that self-distancing when we use that third person, because actually it's not I, it's Katie. It can lower amygdala reactivity, which is what we're looking for because we are trying to get to feelings of safety. It interrupts habit loops, because the minute we say anything out loud, and actually I challenge you to spend a day talking to yourself out loud rather than just letting the thoughts go in. You can either say them out loud and realize what that means in the real world, or you can respond to them out loud and actually start training yourself to have a loving, kind response to what those thoughts are. But it interrupts that loop, which is what we're trying to do, because we are trying to change and help our neural pathway come back into a place that isn't keeping us in that big main fear safety superhighway. It can also help us create a physiological space, which builds distance, again, creating a calmer response. So an example, I can call myself Katie, because that's my name. And I can say, oh, Katie's feeling a bit anxious right now. So obviously you can use your name. I haven't used that as my personal practice. I've used Amygdala Winehouse and her chickens. So I can talk to, hey, Amy, hey, Amygdala, it's okay. We're going to be all right. Don't worry. Because that takes away the fact that I'm saying my brain is not well. Instead, Amygdala Winehouse is having a bit of a moment and needs some love. I've also got Cingulate Gyrus Aguilera in my brain. I ask her to come and sing a duet with Amygdala Winehouse. Yes, it sounds mental. But do you know what? It's about having fun. It's about making it into a way that I can separate myself from it. Because actually, when I imagine those things, I can imagine Christina Aguilera and Amy Winehouse singing a duet. And it means that I get to imagine a song that I like to hear, and I get to imagine everything just calming down. You can make it as fun as you like. A phenomenal lady in my group, her amygdala is a small bunny rabbit with wings. It can be a kitten. It can be anything you want. But if you give it a name, the name is the important thing, because it means that actually you can talk to that part of you without having to get involved in the story of what might be going on for you in that moment. I've also got a part of my brain that I call Nicolas Cage. It's the part of my brain that wants to do everything all the time, that thinks it has to save the world, that thinks that it's got to be amazing constantly. It just needs more screen time. And actually, when those thoughts happen, now I don't have to react to them. I don't have to believe that they're the thing that I have to do in this moment. It means I can just say, hi, Nicolas Cage. Okay, let me think about that. If that's something I want to do, I'll do it. But actually, right now, I don't need to. And again, it's that distancing thing that allows me to calm down. And yes, I know it sounds like I'm developing multiple personalities, but actually it's just because I'm such a visual person, it allows me to take control of these huge thoughts that fill my brain and feel like they're going to take over the world. It allows me to have a level of ownership of them that means that I can separate myself from symptoms, from feelings of anxiety, and from feelings of stress. So, a challenge for you. Who could you call yourself? You could call yourself by your name, or is there another name that you want to give your brain or parts of your personality that will allow you to create distance and allow you to start to calm that lovely, lovely nervous system of yours right down? Only you will know what feels right for your brain. Only you will know what feels right in your body. You'll know when it feels wrong because it sits uncomfortably, but you are allowed to change those words. You are allowed to say the words that you need to hear in order to help you feel safe. So don't feel like you've got to do what I say or what anybody else says, in fact. Make sure that whatever you do works for you. Like me, when I first started trying to do morning mantras in my mirror, fake it till you make it. It felt really uncomfortable for me at the beginning. It wasn't a natural thing for me to do, but I recognized how important and how impactful that could be. And before long, it becomes something that actually it's fine, because it's that whole thing. Fear has so much power. And the minute we start to let go of the power, we start to realize that actually the fear's not there anymore. It's like your shadow. The further away you try and get from it, the bigger it gets. The closer you get to it, you realize it's just you. And actually, the more we can embrace ourselves, the quicker we can heal, because that's partly what this is too. It's a self-love journey, and it's recognizing that there is nothing inside of us that we have to be afraid of anymore. Change takes time is the final thing. Building new neural pathways takes time. So be kind to yourself. Look what you're doing right now. The fact that you even watch this is phenomenal. You've got this, and you are going to get better.